Ashe, mi gente. My name is Elizabeth Jean-Pierre, and you're listening to Bangles and Headdresses, a conversation rooted in reclaiming matriarchal ancestral traditions and reflecting on how we return to the wisdom of our roots to navigate today's world. And today we're joined by Velonika Pome'e. Pome'e. I want to say that right. I want to honor her and her ancestry. Really excited to have her joining us today. She doesn't know this, but the first time I saw her, we were having an event called Climate Justice Lives Here, and she was at the front under a tent, and I was all the way in the back with an elder who came to visit. And I remember just my jaw dropping and feeling like, I know this spirit, I know this energy. And as a leader in the climate justice movement, for me, it was just unbelievable to see people of another generation that were holding it down, that were taking the environmental justice principles into their industry, that were changing literally how that work was done and how they saw themselves, how they were comfortable in their own skin, how they were honoring their ancestors just by saying, this is who I am, and I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to anglicize. I'm not going to do this, that. Sort of the power in that. And also talking about climate justice in the way that frontline leaders all over the country have redefined it. And I don't know any climate justice leaders across the country who knew the folks that were under that tent, but I was there and I was privileged to listen. And I was just, as a mother, as an elder in this movement, I was insanely proud. I was like a human Daffy Duck. And I didn't get an opportunity to say hi to you and to meet you, but I wanted you to know how I experienced listening to you and how I processed that both as a woman, as a matriarch, as a mother, but as an activist. And, you know, my mom always said that I was born with the fist out first. And so that's what I experienced when I saw you for the first time. So a little bit about Velonika. She is a Tongan American model, cultural ambassador, and body sensitivity advocate who made history as the first Polynesian woman featured in the 2019 Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Issue, and continues to use her platform to uplift Pacific Islander communities and redefine beauty standards. Welcome to Bangles and Headdresses, Velonika.
Thank you so much for having me. And you know what? That day, I never spoke to you, but when I was speaking up there, I remember making eye contact with you. And I remember I told you, I was like, I need to talk to her. And I never got to speak to you that day. So I'm really glad that that was your experience, because my experience with you was like, I felt very connected to you just speaking from the front. And when you look out into the crowd and you're looking at people, it's like you can see people who really see you. And it makes me see you even more as well. So I definitely remember that moment.
No, I saw you, I felt you. And I think that's true. I think it's a spirit thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a spirit thing. So, you know, we always open the podcast with this question: what comes to mind when you hear the word matriarch?
I think the central unit of the family. I think as a Tongan woman, it's the pillar, for maintaining family bonds and traditions. I think matriarchs as being like caretakers and custodians of our history and the knowledge that we preserve in the family. Um, and coming from my culture being Tongan, it is a matriarchal society. So a lot of women's roles are very valued and like significant in the culture. So I think it's a very important role. Even just being women today in the world is like holding and understanding that power.
Thank you for sharing that. We love celebrating how people show up and who their people are and what their ancestry has been. And there is in this country a lot of ignorance where we are literally lumped into categories. So people are Latino, they're Hispanic, and so they erase our indigeneity, they
Yes.
erase our Blackness, the individuality and the experience that comes from every country. The same thing happens with Pacific Islanders,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
People assume that everybody is either from the Mariana Islands
Mm-hmm.
or they're from Guam or they're Filipino, but you're Tongan. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want you to share with the viewers how that shows up, because that's also part of your matriarchal lineage.
Yes.
How you identify, how you hold on to that, to language, to identity, to culture, and how that shapes you in an industry that is toxic, that focuses on whiteness and and body image, and how we're supposed to be, how we show up when we're beautiful or not defines us that way. So I don't know if you want to share some
Sure.
of that, because I think that one of the things I love about living in New York City is that everybody, that we're not all the same.
Yes.
I mean, that's the coolest thing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then we are, but we're
Yes.
not, right?
Yes.
So share
Yeah.
that with us.
I want to do a little quick geography
Yeah.
lesson. So the South Pacific Ocean, or the islands, is made up of 3 different island groups, and it's Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia. Polynesia is obviously was what you hear most about in media, which is Polynesian, like The Rock. Football athletes are usually Polynesian. Micronesia is like Tahiti, French Polynesia, which is like smaller islands, and Melanesia is the most melanated peoples of the Pacific.
That's interesting.
Which is Fijian, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. And for me, being Tongan, my mom has also part Samoan and Fijian in her. So I always feel like I represent literally the Pacific. And I feel like also with the women, you kind of really get a feel of how important and intentional the role of the woman is in society. Because when we come to the Western world, it's confusing, because it's like capitalism. You still have to approach or show up with masculine traits and embodiment, because that's the world we live in. But at the same time, it's like being connected to the land. That's very much feminine, and I feel like I had to kind of learn how to put both hats on. I had to learn when to lead with my more masculine qualities about myself, which is like being assertive, being vocal, standing up for myself, taking up space, making commands, not demands,
Well, it's amazing that they think that people often think that when you are assertive and when you take up space, that is a masculine trait, because people define strength as if it was masculine, where women have been holding it down for centuries. And so I love that you're talking about that, because I one of the things that I had to lean into was being more vocal, being, taking up space as I was coming up, because I always looked younger than I was. And I was always the youngest one in the room back in the day. And so I had to be assertive. And I remember a woman saying to me once, "Oh, you have a lot of masculine traits." And I was like, "I feel like I act like my mom, and my mom is super femme, and so how are you defining strength? Is strength a masculine thing?"
I definitely would have felt like before strength would have been something of like physicality and being able to exert your power in a room. And now maybe I would look at it as strength as being subtle, and your softness being a strength as well. Because while most people in a room need to be chaotic or a little all over the place, you can be the person who's like the mediator, or you bring some sense of like calming energy into the room. And I feel like that's strength as a woman, because I don't need to do what men do to feel powerful in the room.
Right.
I can literally be in my divine feminine energy and still hold the power as well.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm like, there is that dichotomy, right, of how people think about it. You grew up in Southern California.
Yes.
And your parents are from the Kingdom of Tonga. And for a lot of us, there's the experience that we have in school, in the community, and then there's the lessons that we get at home.
Yes.
And so what are those lessons? What are those perspectives and that shaped you? And how does it compare to your experience growing up in California?
I think my parents really did a great job of maintaining our Tongan roots, even though they came to America and, I was born here, but we were raised Tongan in the house. And, coming outside, then you kind of have to adjust and put on your Western hat on and go to school and act like you were like everyone else, but you knew going home. There was a very strict Tongan rooted culture. And I think my parents really helped me maintain what my identity was in society. Maybe even more so that I had to challenge even my own Tongan roots, you know, and like being the rebellion in my family of like, well, I can't be one thing and you're telling me to do another. And then I go outside into the world and they're telling me something completely different. So now I have to actually figure out who I am and what about my culture that I still want to keep intact, you know? And I think that, yeah, I feel like in the world now, I'm an extension of my Tongan parents who are very much rooted in family and faith and preservation of our culture, even though we grew up in Southern California. And yeah, but I can't even put a word on it because it's like respect and humility. And I think that's something that all immigrant parents raise their children in. Coming to the US, it's like, how do you still hold that intact in a Western capitalistic world where it's like, it's hard.
You know, I think that people think that humility is a sign of weakness.
Yes.
And submission. And humility is really a word that denotes respect, that really sort of anchors us in community, that says, I don't know everything, but collectively we know everything.
Yes.
I don't have all the solutions, but collectively we have all the solutions. And so this is a country that focuses on the individual and that really sort of is hierarchical and dismisses the word humility when humility is what would make it possible for us to be able to address all kinds of complicated process and problems like we have historically.
Yes.
So I like that you use that word because that word is so important to me.
Yes.
I think about, when I think about humility, you know, in the work that I'm doing, well, it's massive. You're working on climate change, it's massive. And it is the epitome of arrogance to think that as an individual, you have the answer to any particular problem.
Yes.
But if you have humility, you understand that collectively we have those answers.
Stay open.
Yeah. And that's a cultural thing. That's a cultural practice.
It's a cultural thing. And I think even like going into modeling, I had to define humility for myself because culturally, how we define humility is not, it doesn't apply in the industry because I actually have to come in there with the confidence. I have to know that I actually belong here. This is not the time to play the humility card. This is the time to actually stand in my power. And that was a difficult thing for me because it was like, oh my gosh, like I was taught to, you know, it's like our culture is like, you're taught to be in service. So coming to the industry, I was like, oh no, thank you. Or like if we were on set, I would like ask them if they wanted help. And it was like, no, you're not the help. You're the talent, you know? And I would have moments where my agents would tell me like, yeah, you can't, like, don't offer to help. Go in there and act like a little bit bossy. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to ask for what I want, speak for what I want, you know? So I definitely had to learn to define humility in different ways because I don't want to be played with. I don't want people to think that because of my humility, you can take advantage of me because I don't know any better, you know? So there is like
it's difficult.
Yes.
We're the people that if we go to a restaurant, before the waiter comes to us, we've already cleaned up the table.
1,000%.
And we've packed all the plates and we're making it easy, right? That's what we do. So it's not unlike, so it becomes a real conflict. It's a cultural conflict because one, you have to walk with your ancestors, which you do. And at the same time, so you have to hold that space and let them know that the fact that I'm here right now means that every generation before me walked through fire so I can be here. So I'm going to walk with my ancestors, right? And at the same time, hold that humility, which is what makes you connected to everything around you. That is deeply spiritual and cultural. And it is hard because what we see as strength, people who are patriarchal, who are into white supremacy, see as weakness.
Yes.
And so you take all of this, everything that you're bringing in, your parents, your Tongan roots, all of that ancestry, all of that power, and you decide that you're going to do some community organizing. How do you go into that, and what motivated you to do that? Because, some of the times that, I had an opportunity to meet with and interview Cameron Russell, and I've been one of those people who crosses disciplines because I think that they're all connected to each other. But I always think that folks that do the work aren't like one-trick ponies. They're not just doing one thing. We are multi-dimensional problem solvers, right? And so you go into community organizing, and what is driving you to that? Was there a mentor? Was it what was that thing that made you say, I got to do this?
Oh my gosh. So I feel like what got me into organizing is definitely being a rebellious teenager. Like all the things that young girls should not do, I did. And I learned, I had like this transitional period after high school before college where I went to jail. I did everything possible that like the first daughter of an immigrant family should not do. And I feel like in those years, I really kind of had like an awakening, a spiritual awakening, because I felt like, oh, like God is going to use my life to help other young girls, especially like the culturally rooted girls, learn about themselves. And I got into community organizing because I wanted to create space for the girls like me that was kind of lost and at risk. And that's kind of like where I feel like my purpose really came from, was helping young at-risk teens, because I was one of them. And I started like organizing locally in my parents' living room with like my friends, because we were all in this transition period where we weren't going to college. We also didn't have a job, but we just finished high school. And it was like, you can get distracted in so many different ways. But if we had like things put in place that we can come together, and we still did the things that young people do. Like we were still, like partying vibe, but it was more so like a focus group for young people to come together. And then afterwards, we can like have a little fun, but at least it was like it was a way for us to kind of relate to each other in a way where we're all trying to figure ourselves out. This is like literally 17, 18, 19, 20. And during that time, I was doing the community work, and it was fun, and I very much enjoyed it, but it takes money. You need money to help people. Being in the nonprofit sector, it requires a lot of resources that I didn't understand at the time because I was so young, but I was very ambitious. I was like, no, I want to change, And then like awakening was like, my dad was like, you can't be trying to help the needy and you're the one who's in need, So it's like I had to transition from, okay, I want to do a lot of work in the community, but what is it that I can do for myself to show up as like part of the community, as a villager, And I think going into modeling, it was like one of the 3-4 things that you can go in as a young person, which is you're either going to go into academics, you're an athlete, you're in entertainment, or music. And it was like, pick a lane that's the most influential for young people. And for me, obviously in those lanes, it was like fashion. I can express myself. Like I can literally be this unapologetic, alter ego that maybe culturally I couldn't do because as a Tongan woman, or like maybe in the world and society that we live in, I couldn't do because I'm not a man. So it was like, how can I actually express myself? And I tapped into fashion and soon realized like, oh, all the young kids want to look cool and dress fly. So this was to me like my lane to be the most influential about things I actually care about, but probably like at the forefront, everyone's kind of like just looking over it,
I think that's such a California thing. I'm going to say, because in New York City, it's doctor, teacher, lawyer, accountant. And you're like, creativity. Like you're thinking about it really differently. And I'm listening and I'm like, okay, that's all California and that's beautiful. But you're describing yourself as a young person and you're using words like rebellious. So here's how I'm processing what you're saying. I'm processing smart person who doesn't fit in a box and who is pushing all the boundaries because they don't fit in a box. I'm thinking smart person who is not at risk, but is at potential, right? And I'm not going to define our people as being at risk,
You better
but at
affirm me.
potential. And the other thing I'm going to say is that white youth get to make all the mistakes and still make it and not be called at risk. They get to make mistakes. They get to fail. They get to try things over and over again. And it's only our young people who have to succeed every single time. When there's that phase, that period in time when it's exploratory, where you're trying to understand your body and your relationship with people, and we're not given that space or that opportunity, we are criminalized for it and demonized for it. But, you know, if you've ever been in Park Slope in Brooklyn and you see sort of the kids running through, tasting food, opening packages and stuff like that, and you ask yourself, if that was a Black child, if that was a brown child, somebody would be getting security, right? Because those children are allowed to be free-range children, do all the things, and nothing happens to them because they're just being kids. But when it's ours, all of a sudden you get criminalized and you start integrating that negativity into your being. And all I think is that these were some brilliant kids getting together, experimenting, trying to learn things, trying to find their way, because that's that stage when you're a teenager. And then you emerge as this brilliant person who becomes a Sports Illustrated model. Come on. So I want you to think about that, because I feel like our young people are constantly integrating this idea of themselves as being less than or being defined by what everyone is trying to make them define themselves as. But that doesn't happen to privileged kids. They get sent away to a boarding school, like all kinds of opportunities. They get second opportunities. They get instructors that are tutors. Like, you know, they can fail. Even when we're doing startups and we're starting businesses, like, they can make mistakes over and over and pick themselves up again. And we're always being defined by our mistakes and not by how far we come, considering that we're coming from struggle. So I'm sorry, but as a mother and as somebody who's been working with young people for a long time, I just wanted to share that, because all I see is brilliance. When I watched you, I was like, that's what's up right there.
I love that you said that. And I thank you for saying that. I receive it with love, because I feel like when you're growing up in very culturally rooted, I'm going to repeat that a lot during this podcast, only because I think it's a generational thing, you know? And thankfully, like, you have a mindset of a parent that is going to be supportive and create environments that children can thrive in, especially in their talents. But like you said, where most of the job criteria here was like lawyers, accountants, you know, it's like a very prestigious in New York. But I think that's what all parents want for their kids when they're coming here looking for like a new life. And so everything is off the table. Everything else is off the table. Reputation is also on the line. Like, you know, you can't be having us looking crazy. And like how you said, like, we're definitely condemned for our mistakes at a young age, because it's a generational thing. And I think for me getting into like organizing and being a leader in that point was more so to create the spaces that we don't have to positively reinforce these things, you know? And I didn't have that either. I think at a young age, I really much knew that I was like, wow, I'm very fortunate that I'm not internalizing my struggles so much so that I can't come up out of this, one. And two, that I can't like actually be a voice or be a light for other kids who are like myself going through the same kind of identity things, or, you know. And I felt like during that time, it was like, no, this is something that we need, like the world needs. And like, I think young people would definitely have better opportunities or more resources if we had the space, you know. And I went into it very naive, because it was like, oh, it takes a lot of work. And I had a lot of mentors, Black women, actually. They were my mentors in the space of organizing. And she's the one who taught me that we don't come into the room making demands, you make commands.
Yes.
You know, because she was like, it's a different energy.
Funny how language changes everything, right?
Yes. And I think that combined with, okay, well, what do I want from me? You know, what is the one thing that I can go and do, I can fully embody and believe in it, and self-expression, and then finding a lane like fashion. And I feel like whatever it is that I was doing in my own personal journey, other kids can take from it the same way you said, like, you know, they'll look at it and be like, oh, wow, like, I'm not perfect. She's not perfect. and she's still kind of doing her
But
thing.
you didn't have to be that way. You could have been selfish. You could have been all about self, but you were leaderful and you were sharing everything you were learning with other people so that they wouldn't have to go through the things you went through. And that's part of your ancestry. That's your matriarchal ancestry. That's culture. And it's in your cells. Your body remembers. You are organizing, and it's 2019, and you're at a charity fundraiser, minding your business, and all of a sudden you're invited to walk the LA Fashion Week.
Yes.
What? Come on, what is that? Share with us what that experience was like, because that's pretty surreal.
In my transition from organizing to modeling, we used to put together charity fashion shows, and it would help like feed the homeless or battered women with children. It was always a cause. So we would do all these fun things and then tie it back to community volunteerism and like giving back. And I just happened to be in the show that there was a designer she was showcasing as well. And she was going to be in LA Fashion Week. And that's how it kind of happened. And when she asked me, I was like, like, I was just, it was just for fun because I was in my nonprofit, bag. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can really, really do this for real. And then maybe this would also help secure more funding and secure like more support and more help. And then people would see like, oh, she's really serious. Because I feel like at that point, people weren't taking me serious as a community organizer. It was like, oh, it's cute, it's fun, but like, what are you doing? Like, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. So I feel like the modeling thing was kind of like my thing that I can be like, this is how I'm using my movement. And like, and they say that it's not a movement unless the people in it are moving.
That's right.
So I kind of was like, all right, let me take a step back from organizing and let me actually be the movement. Let me embody what my movement is. And I think when I went into modeling, now it's new level unlocked, right? Now it's like
super high level, by the way. You didn't just like you went straight to the top.
It was years. It took time, but I definitely feel like I was on a trajectory of like, I want to inspire young girls and I want them to see themselves in a different light. And obviously it was going to start with me. So I had to create what the visual was going to be for everyone else. And I had to see myself in a different light too. Like I remember having to talk to my parents because Tongan culture is very conservative. Like even to be a Tongan Sports Illustrated model today, whereas like if you're Tongan living in Tonga, you can't wear a bikini on the beach, So it's like
that's not the way Western culture has depicted Pacific Island women.
Exactly.
Interesting, right?
Exactly. And that's definitely like whitewashing the culture as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like, when I made the decision that I was actually gonna make this move in my life, and it was gonna come with some backlash from the culture or from the church, because my parents are very heavily in it. And I had to talk to them and be like, hey, people might come back and say this, or look at your daughter.
You said Jesus was a liberator. He was an activist.
Shoot, I told my parents that they got a problem with that. They got a problem with God because you gave me the height. I used my height for sports in school, and now I can use the height for for something else. And maybe they would be hating because their kids can't do it or their daughters don't believe in themselves to go do it. So that was like
So one of the things that I'm loving about how you talk about giving and charity work and having this path so that you can support that work is that a lot of times people talk about the work that we do as like, you do that work, is it hard? Like, how do you, and you're talking about, it was fun. You're embracing abundance and you're finding avenues to embrace abundance and you're embracing joy. And for us, giving is not like a sacrifice. It's joy. It's like somebody hooked me up. Somebody had my back. I'm here because other people made it possible. You mentioned your mentor, and I'm going to basically be part of a community of care. I'm going to be engaged in collective care, and it's joy.
Yes.
And I think that people don't understand that. Like sometimes they talk to us in a way like, so this is so kind what you're doing. And we're like, okay, this is what we've been doing for millennia, right? And we're doing it differently now because we're living in a capitalist system and things cost money.
Right.
And so we're trying to find ways of embracing abundance and supporting each other. Again, I see that as an affirmation of your ancestral background. And I feel it too as an island person, as somebody who knows that we need to get up when there's a Hurricane Maria, when there's an extreme weather event, when colonialism is basically making it impossible for us to survive on the things that we grew, that were part of our
Second
culture.
nature.
Yeah, that was second nature. So I don't know if you see those connections, but I'm totally seeing them. And
I do.
Yeah.
I honestly do. I feel thankful to be anchored in that way by my ancestors. And like, even though in the physical realm, it feels like it's challenging or you're running into a lot of walls. But I feel like spiritually, I always felt like, no, this is the right thing to do. Like, even if you had to pick and choose between, like, I don't know, like surviving capitalism versus like surviving like Mother Nature, I would definitely bet, my bottom dollar here. And joy. Finding joy was very important to me because I'm like, I can't see myself like doing things in life or just being a part of the system and you not knowing it. Like, it was like more so like, I want to be a contributor to how we're going to make the world a better place, even though we are aware of the problems, but how can I show up as the solution?
Yeah.
Like in my everyday life embodiment.
Absolutely.
The organization is one thing. It's a huge, it's a huge thing. But how can I take it back to just myself? Because everybody's always asking me, well, how can I do it? It's like you want everyone to be a part of the movement, but sometimes it's like what they're facing in their day-to-day or their personal lives makes it hard for them to think about the well-being of the world or the well-being of those around them.
Yeah.
And I was suffering with that too, because it was like being obedient to my parents, being obedient to like what society says this is the next thing in life you're supposed to do versus like, I'm like holding on for dear life, Like I was like, I had to kind of recenter it and go back to myself. And I think a lot of young people need that. They need that recalibration, and then also to be constantly reminded that as you get older, you're going to have another one of these. Like, you never stop learning about yourself. You never stop growing.
Hope.
Yeah, we hope, right?
We hope people keep learning because otherwise we're stuck.
Yes.
That's the whole fun of life is learning constantly and growing. So you're in a really competitive industry where people are really sort of like, in Spanish, we say, quítate tú para ponerme yo, like move over because I'm here.
Yeah.
But you've really sort of, you've become like we become role models whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
Like people look at us and like, okay, you did well. Now everybody's got to follow. How do you do that? Like, how do you serve as an advisor? What are the kinds of questions that people ask you? How do you provide guidance in an industry that can, if you don't have enough confidence, can really take you out?
I think in my own personal story, like I have to honor myself and be authentic to myself. So a lot of times, like I won't try to act like I'm all fine and everything's all great. I really do try to speak truth to the things that you have to consider, and more so like outside of career. It's more so like what your well-being is on the day-to-day. Like how do you affirm yourself? What is your perspective on life when things is like going bad? And I think that's again a generational thing because you're raised in lack. And you're raised like, oh, is money this, is that. And then you come into your adult life and it's like you want all these things, but there are things hindering your mindset alone. Before you can even go get the job, you are probably already like talking down on yourself about not getting the job, And these are things that is like it's in us.
It's colonialism.
Yes.
It takes so much courage to get past that.
And that requires a lot more work than what people think. And it's work that you don't see because it's a more of mental warfare. Before I can physically get outside of myself to reach the goal, to get the job, to get the partner, the family, the house, like you actually have to be within yourself so at peace mentally that none of those things even faze you if you don't have it. And that's hard because we live in a capitalistic world. It reminds you every day that it costs money.
And your parents don't understand because they struggled so much and they want you to have a better life. They're like, oh my God, why is she doing this?
And that requires healing too, right? That's traumatizing in itself. And then you have to forgive your parents because they don't know any better.
They're coming from a place of love.
They're literally trying to build a better life of you, but maybe from operating from a place of lack. And so you have to do the healing work, do the self-realization, self-actualization to come out of that and then apply it. So I feel like as an advisor or like a way to help young girls, I feel like we need space and time for that. And it's a lot of internal, it's a lot of therapy. Maybe not so much. I'm moving into a different place now in my life too. Maybe not so much talk therapy, but behavior therapy, where there are spaces where you can come and you can channel this energy, or you can find ways. That's why I'm also a believer in like the creative aspect of young people being able to explore, because that is what actually will help you out of depression. That is actually what's going to help you see yourself
really
in
does.
a different light, is participating in things or being in part of groups that can give you a certain type of energy to tap into it. And I do think what you're saying, like, that is my ancestors. That's a spiritual thing that is like, you can't lie about that. Like, I didn't get that out of a book. I just know that that's what we need, like a community space. And I think that that's what I'm trying to do now, is embody that, because I've already showed that you can come from here and you can do this, right? Now I'm trying to show where it's like, it has nothing to do with your outside. It really has to do with doubling down on your internal. And your internal obviously can be reflected in physical spaces like community, but you literally need to be like talking to yourself. You literally need to be making your body feel safe. And those are things that right now, even in my 30s, like, I'm like, oh, I don't know this girl today. I'm a totally new person than I was in my 20s, and the things
As you should be.
As you should be, right? And the things that I definitely thought I've already done my healing in, now it's the next phase, it's the next chapter, and how can I help the women navigating out of their 20s and their 30s to embrace this part of their lives, and I want to emphasize not having to do with like your physical exterior, because like, you see people all day, every day, everything look good, but at home, everything's trash, and when I say home, I mean home. You can look like you're a great participant in this society, but energetically, spiritually, you could be low. So I feel like right now my work is reflective on that now. It's like, I really want to dig deep. I want to have these deep conversations. I want to talk to men. I want them to actually speak. How we're talking about being assertive and like being more vocal, like energetically, that would be your chakra, your throat chakra is blocked. So that means you have a lot of stuff to work down here. And I think that's, for me, being a voice for women is like literally using my voice, but also creating space where they can use their voice too, and they can be given permission to.
Is there a cultural memory or tradition that guides you as you navigate your way through all of these challenges and in these conversations? I think healing for us is tremendously important. Like, our bodies remember, it's epigenetics, it's in our cells. And when we deal with oppression or abuse, it's other level, because it literally generation after generation. So that work, we think it's a luxury to have to take care of it, and it's so necessary, right? But part of how we heal is also our cultural traditions, our memories, which remind us of who we were before we manifested this way because of things that have happened to our people. Are there any that you remember, or that you think this? For me, I burn sage so much that I feel like there's a bonfire around me. Like, in this political moment that I'm in right now, there isn't enough sage. Literally, there's like a little smoke cloud behind me every time I'm moving around. That's one of the things that I do. But like, anything like that makes you feel grounded and anchored as you navigate your way through these challenges.
I think definitely the community aspect. Like, moving from California to New York in pursuit of like my career goals, I had to start all over again. I don't have family. I don't have
How old
close
were you,
friends.
by the way, when you moved to California?
27. Oh, wait, when I moved from California.
Were you born and raised in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was born and raised in California. And I think coming to New York, it can eat you up.
It's a whole different flow.
Yes, it can eat you up. And I had to come and establish what my community was going to be here, despite the craziness the city gives you. And I remember when me and my best friend moved here, my best friend Jazz, my dad told us like, well, we're not there with you guys. So you guys have to look out for each other, And that was like my very first thing of community being here in New York was like, okay, like this is my sister. And I can't, like if something was to happen to me, I can't call my parents. It would be her. She'd be my emergency contact. And I feel like because of that, we were able to just build a even grander community of our friends of like, we're all creatives, we're all moving here, trying to figure ourselves out. But we need to create our own family. Like, and what is that going to look like? Maybe the things that our parents used to do growing up, like our families getting together every weekend, a barbecue, my mom having to figure out the food, my dad having to figure everything else out. I learned firsthand being here with my friends in New York. I was like, dang, this is what my parents be doing every time. We have family functions, and then like how much money it costs, who buying the food, then cooking the food, like first time preparing a the traditional Thanksgiving meal, like, so I feel like there's things that I really learned as far as keeping my bonds and my ties together. And in our friends group, oftentimes I would become the initiator. Like, I'm a host something and have it at my house.
I'm glad you're sharing that with me because I often wonder because I feel like New York City, we're like a block away. We're up the block. We're on the stoop. We're literally like you walk out of the door and there's people, there's community. And when I'm in California, I'm like, you got to get on a highway to get to the next neighborhood. And I'm like, and you don't have a bodega down the block. Like, how do you live, right? How do you build community? Mm-hmm. And that's just New York City arrogance, obviously, because I know people in LA, obviously there's community there. But my assumption is always that it's easier to build community here than in these places where literally the topography, the infrastructure separates people. Is that true or not? Like, because I was born and raised here, so my whole point of view comes from like every block is a whole neighborhood.
That notion of inconvenience in community is real. Because my parents, where we live in Southern California, is 45 minutes from the family.
That's what I'm saying.
And every weekend, every other week, like my childhood consists of church, choir practice, and basketball practice, but family and school sports. And when I came here, it's like it's easy to be like, oh, I'm not going. Like, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm staying in the house.
That's interesting.
In California, you have to put in an effort to build your community and then stay in community because there are things happening. There's birthdays, there's weddings, there's this, that, and the third. You're always putting up money. That's another thing, culturally rooted, like obligations, financial obligations to the family. And when I moved to New York, I actually was like, oh, the stuff that my parents used to do, like my whole entire life, I have to
recreate that.
Yeah, I have to recreate that. And like our friends, when we first moved here, no one was having barbecues. We had to be the ones that
unless there's a blackout, in which case we empty out our freezers and there's a barbecue right in front of the stoop.
Right. But like it was even little things like that we probably took for granted and didn't realize like how being in community, you have to organize, you have to mobilize, you have to
prioritize.
Yes, you have to prioritize. And here, when you're just like growing, getting into your adult life, it's like, do you want that? Is that still a vital part of your ecosystem now? And if it is, then you have to make an effort, which is like
interesting.
The generational thing now, where it's like everyone would rather stay inside the house or be on their phones. Like no one's actually interacting with each other and engaging with each other. So I think an extension of that now culturally is me always making sure that within my friends or whoever I'm around is that we're putting an effort to come together, check in with each other, even if it's just like a meal or, something simple. It's like we have to do that. And I find myself also like, if I want to be a better friend, a better daughter, a better sister, I have to be held accountable in the same way too.
Yeah. It takes effort, especially after COVID, for people to be in community with each other. But I do think it's important for your mental health. It's the way we're supposed to be. We're social, we're social beings. And so I find that I'm observing people have a harder time getting out of the house. And we have to get out of the house. We need to get to a place where there are people working with each other, learning across the table from each other. the isolation is not healthy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot these days to be afraid of, to be concerned about. But I think that what you're saying is you need to put in the effort, and the effort is worth it. We were supposed to be those people all along. We were.
Mm-hmm.
Our ancestors were. So the fact that you recreated here, I think that that's a healthy thing, and I'm certain that gives you a lot of happiness,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's necessary. So, in what ways are you becoming a matriarch? Because I sit here as an elder who's like leaning into it. I talk about the rise of the matriarchy and how I'm in my elder flow. And I didn't realize that I was always becoming a matriarch, that I was on that journey, right? So you're on that journey, you're on that path. Remember when I talk about intergenerational relationships, I say that we grow, we learn, we build across the table with each other,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not one generation against the other, but
Mm-hmm.
in our culture,
Yes.
power is intergenerational.
Yes.
So you're on that path of matriarchy. Tell me how you're holding that matriarchal space.
I love this question because I just came back from the West Coast. I spent a week and a half in Vegas and a week and a half in Southern California with my family, my siblings, and my parents. And as the matriarchy or matriarchal figure in my family, as the first eldest daughter, I feel like I'm healing generational trauma,
Ooh.
like in a real way. I feel like I'm actually time traveling because I'm having conversations with my parents that we've probably been trying to have since I was a teen. But because I didn't have the language and I didn't have the emotional regulation, that it never landed. Something always happened where it was like a big blowout, and then we would years apart and then come back and brush things under the rug and act like everything is cool. And I feel like this time around being able, like I feel that I'm changing and that I'm different because I can show up different during these times with my family. And then there's a light bulb going on too. And then I can see the change actually happening. It's crazy.
Can you give me an example of language?
Language. Also because I've been, whenever I'm home, I talk in Tongan to my parents now. Because, when you speak in your native tongue, the message hits different versus when you're speaking in plain English. So that for sure I didn't have when I was younger because I'm trying to use these words like there's not a word. I'm only going to say this because there's a conversation I was having with my dad, but there's not a word for narcissist in Tongan culture. So when
that says a lot.
Yes. So when you're talking, trying to have deeply rooted conversations around emotions and feelings, you really can't get your point across because in English, it doesn't click for them, So stuff like that. I definitely had a lot of conversations with my dad that blew up. And then it's me having the tools to come back and be like, hey, I'm not saying this to trigger you. This is not supposed to be a conversation to make you mad. I just want to talk to understand you. But maybe he's like, dang, no one's ever said that to me before.
Right.
No one's ever broke this down to me where conflict resolution. And then he's literally forced in the moment to bring himself down because I have the language now. I have the emotional regulations that I don't have to take the things you're telling me personal because I understand it's coming from a wounded place. I had another aha moment with my brother. I grew up, I have 4 brothers, 1 sister, very heavily dominated by men. So it's very interesting that Tongan culture is matriarchal, but I grew up around all these men. And
I have 5 brothers.
So
I'm the oldest and the only daughter.
Yeah. So being a matriarch is it's literally you're born and bred into it because it's I had no reason but to rise as the woman, as the feminine figure in the family. And not to say that my mom and my sister wasn't present, but it's just the eldest daughter, I feel like you literally are a disruptor, and if it's done in love, light, and the truth, it's going to be a lot of things that happen that come out the wrong way, but you have to stay anchored that it's love, light, and truth, But I want to tell you about my brother because I grew up seeing the best men in my life also exhibit the worst qualities and traits of a man, Well, again, they were the best men in my life. And I kind of went into dating leading with fear because I seen the best men in my life also treat their women poorly, or it took time for them to come around. So it was like, a man's gonna be a man. I had that kind of rhetoric in my mind. And I'm in a relationship now. So I'm also my first time dating since before organizing and being in like love and opening myself up to that. I seen that with my brothers. So obviously I have this fear in my current relationship. And then also being the matriarch is also loving them through these things, showing them that they are still worthy and deserving of love, even if your behavior shows me that I shouldn't, but I'm your sister. There's no other woman in your life who's going to be here like me. And that took time. But then my brother is getting married, and to see this switch from him of being like me generalizing what men are, because I've seen it growing up. And then now I'm also seeing a shift in him. Like it did something in my soul. It made me believe that like, wow, men can be great. Like that I've always believed in love, but I was like, oh, I believe that men can actually change. And I believe that men can actually show up and be what they need to be for their women. And how lucky I am that I had this experience with my dad and my brothers, even though they weren't perfect men. They did all the things, all the things, and seeing them kind of shift, seeing my dad change. But my brother is the biggest one because he was like a dog. Like he was a dog. And then seeing like when you're loved on by the right woman and how it can change the man. And then obviously like from the other side, he has a sister, and the wisdom of me as the matriarch coming into his life, and then his new partner being the matriarch of their family.
They can and do change. They are bombarded with a lot of negative messages their entire life that tell them that to be a man means to be the way that they are.
Yes.
And I know that with my brothers, my only message to them was, you treat a woman the way you want your sister, your daughter, or your mother to be treated. So I didn't have to talk to them about feminism. I had to talk to them about the women they loved, cared, and respected. And my brothers actually turned out to be really decent human beings. And I'm really proud of that. But I feel that without that alternative voice, that other voice like the one that you provided, providing them with loving and nurturing guidance, all they have is what they're hearing on television and school from other guys, and sort of this legacy of harm. And so, but when their heart is open, that transformation does and is happening. I see it more now than I did coming up. So I think that's a cool thing.
Yes.
I see more guys taking care of their children, enjoying taking care of their children and spending time with their children, doing the things that they should have been doing all along. It's not like it's special, but it is a change that I'm witnessing, and it's a good change. So they get to enjoy what being a full parent is. And that was taken away from them because the parenthood was defined differently.
They didn't have it, yeah.
So I really respect the role that you played, because that's gonna shape future generations.
Yes, and I think it is reflective of like the men that we have now is because we as women are elevating more. So it's like we're literally setting the tone for the men to rise as well, the same way we have to rise.
When they're feminists, they win.
Yeah.
So I have a last question, and it's something to leave our listeners with. If you could speak directly to your great-grandmother or an ancestral matriarch, what would you want to ask or thank her for?
Wow. The crazy thing is like after this, I'm going to channel that through you and ask you a lot of questions about. But I probably would be just so grateful that I can show up today as I am with the heart that I have and the mind that I have, and not be afraid to do so. I think that I can only like give my gratitude to the people before me, because I a lot of times I'm like, I don't even know why do I think I can be this courageous or be this brave, or where the hell did I get the audacity from? But I know it's like, thank you, because I know that my ancestors are with me. And I think that whenever I do show up, even if I am nervous or I'm stressed or I have anxiety about anything, there's a little bit of me that's like, no, girl, you got this. And it's, it's almost like that kind of just leaves me. And then now I feel like I'm actually handled with care to come into the space with the wisdom. And yeah, I would just say that I'm thankful and just grateful to be the woman I am today because of what has come before me. And I feel that, because there's no way that I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm this bad bitch. And it's like, no. I'm probably saying that, but I'm probably saying it because I feel it so deeply within me that like, no, you actually can't do this.
So, Velonika, can you share where we can find you online and your work for our viewers?
All of my social media is at Velonika Pome'e or V Pome'e, or you can go to vpcreates.com to find out more about what I actually do.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for listening to Bangles and Headdresses. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Velonika Pome'e. And make sure that you hit like and subscribe and join the conversation on our Instagram and TikTok accounts, Bangles and Headdresses, all caps. Until next time, ashe.